Hi there everybody, this is Ryan Ball of Generation Next Franchise Brands Reese & Irvies, and today I'm going to take you through the cleaning of your robot. So the first thing you want to make sure of is that you have your sanitary gloves on, as you will be in contact with that soft serve mix. The machine itself, the product will be in a frozen state when you get there to do the cleaning, so you're going to want to make sure that it's defrosted well enough to where you can actually drain any existing product. So in order to do that, you're going to head over to your touch screen. You're going to want to go into the maintenance mode. In order to go into maintenance mode, you're going to touch the bottom left corner, the bottom right corner, and then the top right corner. It'll then bring up a prompt to enter in your password. Please enter in your maintenance password as assigned. Hit OK, and then we'll bring you to that maintenance screen. So the next step is to go into that cleaning process, and you're going to want to put the machine into a cleaning process, both the left side and the right side, and let that run for 3 to 5 minutes so that it properly breaks down and gets that product in the correct state. So prior to actually draining the product out of the soft serve unit, you want to make sure that you remove your flavor burst system. So in order to remove the flavor burst system, you simply go ahead and pull this piece out as it lines up. You're then going to go ahead and unscrew this guy here. And then you can go ahead and turn this component off the nozzle. And then unplug the power. So after you've removed the flavor burst system, you're now going to want to place your bucket under the spigots. Take your bucket, and you can go ahead and place the handle under these bottom knobs here, which will allow for you to open the spigots to drain all your product. In order to open those spigots, you're going to want to go to your touch screen under the maintenance screen clean mode and hit open on both of the spigots. Make sure you hit open twice for each spigot. That way it'll open it all the way, as if you hit it once, it'll only open it halfway. So after all the product is drained from the machine, you're then going to want to remove your bucket and simply set it aside. Make sure and then you go over to the maintenance screen and close all of your spigots prior to adding the water to each of the hopper. So then what we'll do is go ahead and remove the lids from the top of the machine. If need be, please utilize the step stool so you can get up there and easily see everything. You can simply take your lids, like so, and set them to the side. You're then going to want to reach in and remove your inlet regulators. And simply set those in the hoppers. Your next step is going to be to fill one of your buckets with 2 gallons of water, and then go ahead and add that water to the left side and then the right side with another 2 gallons of water to then rinse out any of that remaining product that's in your machine. You can then set your buckets either back on your cart or to the side. And now what we're going to want to do is run a clean cycle for about 3 to 5 minutes in order to remove any of that excess product prior to draining. So after you ran your clean cycle, you're then going to want to take one of the buckets used that you had filled with water originally and apply it to the dispensing area, so that way you can in turn drain the remainder of that water and any existing product. So while the machine is draining, you can go ahead and take your barrel brush and then clean any existing water or soft serve in each of the hoppers by pushing that down in the drain with the brush. So after you've cleaned the hoppers with your barrel brush, feel free to set that brush just on your cart, and then you're going to want to remove that bucket that has the wastewater in it and simply set it to the side. Your next step is going to be to go to your maintenance screen so you can make sure and close those spigots prior to adding the sanitized water. So with that being said, you want to go ahead and fill 2 buckets with 2 gallons of water each, and then you're going to want to add 1 packet of Sterashine to each one of those buckets. So after you've added your sanitizer solution to each one of those hoppers, you're going to want to head back over to your touchscreen in the maintenance mode and put it into clean mode. Let run for at least 3 to 5 minutes so that it fully penetrates the machine with all of that sanitizer solution. Now while that clean mode is occurring, you can take your barrel brush and simply clean out any other remaining product and simply wipe around your hoppers with the sanitizer already in each of those hoppers. So while that clean cycle is running, you can take one of the buckets that initially had the sanitizer mix in it and place it under your dispensing spigots. So after that clean cycle's ran for the full 5 minutes, you're then going to want to deactivate the clean cycle from your touchscreen for each one of the hoppers. Once deactivated, you can then open each of your spigots to start draining that sanitizer solution. Make sure that you do not overflow that 2-gallon bucket and you in fact stop the spigot prior to it getting over the top of the bucket itself. You can then replace that existing bucket with another one that is empty in order to drain the remainder of that sanitizer. So after all the sanitizer is drained from the machine, make sure you then go ahead and close each one of your spigots. You can then take the bucket away from the dispensing door, set to the side, and that will complete the initial cleaning process, making sure that you do empty all of your buckets prior to going into the next steps. So now we're going to go through each of the steps to properly disassemble your soft serve unit. The first thing you're going to want to do is remove the star caps from the spigots. They simply snap off like so. And then in order to remove the component for the flavor burst system, you want to take a small flathead screwdriver and simply press up, and those will easily pry downwards. So after you've removed the star caps and the flavor burst caps, the next thing you're going to do is remove the pins from the actual delivery door harness. Make sure you then set those pins onto your cart. So prior to removing that delivery door, it's not a bad idea to either put a bar towel or some paper cloths down around this area just for any kind of spillage or excess sanitizer that might drip through. So now we're going to go ahead and remove the delivery door from the soft serve unit. In order to do so, simply start unscrewing these 4 knobs, working in a cross pattern. There might be a little sanitizer that drips through. Don't worry about that. Maybe put a little rag down in order to prevent that from getting everywhere. So once you have the 4 knobs off of the delivery door, you can simply set these to the side. And then in order to remove the entire delivery door, you want to make sure that these areas right here are lined up so that way it easily slides out, just like so. You can then take your delivery door and set it in your oversized tray. So now that the delivery door has been removed, we're going to go ahead and remove the augers. The first step in removing the auger is to remove the auger lock by simply turning counterclockwise, pulling out, and then can go in the designated spot in the lid itself. You can then remove the bushing within the auger by placing your finger inside, pulling the bushing out, and then in fact placing it in its corresponding area on the lid. Now in order to remove the augers, what you want to do is you want to slightly pull out, and as pulling, you want to rotate so that way that first auger plate is facing upwards. Do not pull out all the way. Once that first auger plate is facing upwards, you can remove that auger plate and place it in its designated spot. You can continue to do this for the second auger plate, rotating as it faces upwards, place it in its designated spot. And then for these last two auger plates, you want to make sure that you hold them together with your loose hand as you slowly pull out the auger entirely, making sure that that back area is facing upwards so as not to drop that gasket itself. So using the Sterashine that you initially drained from the machine itself, feel free to take the barrel brush, insert it into the bucket of Sterashine, and then you will utilize this to clean each one of your barrels. Make sure you get in there very thoroughly, twisting your wrist and counting to 10 as you scrub within each one of those barrels, getting any of the mix or any leftovers that might be within the barrel itself. Now that the auger blades have been removed, you're going to want to remove the springs from the blades themselves. In order to do so, you're simply going to grab the back of this spring, slightly rotate like so, and as you twist, you will be able to pull the entire spring out of the blade itself and then apply it to its necessary spot in the lid. So now we're going to go ahead and disassemble the delivery door. First, you want to remove the orange O-rings on the door itself. Once these are removed, you can simply place them in their corresponding spot on the lid. Next, you're going to want to remove the spigots by applying pressure to the top of the spigot, and it'll slowly come out of the bottom. It then will go into its corresponding area on the lid, and then you'll repeat these same steps for the other two spigots. So now we're going to go ahead and remove the O-rings from the spigot, starting with the top O-ring and rolling its way down. And as you get the O-ring off the spigot, you then want to place it in its designated spot on the lid. You can then remove that center O-ring as such. And then finally on the third O-ring, using your O-ring tool by simply getting under it, rolling it down, and placing it in its designated area. Now that the machine is completely disassembled, you're going to want to take your components over to your sink where you'll do a wash and a rinse. So one thing to know when it comes to cleaning your components is regarding the inlet regulator, you will want to use your brushes to properly get inside the inlet regulator and clean it accordingly. You can use the large brush to get into the larger portion right here, and then you can take the smaller brush to get down into this area as needed. You're also going to want to utilize the brushes for the pathways within the delivery door. So if you take your brushes and your delivery door when cleaning, you can simply brush through the different pathways using the large brush for the main spigots and then the smaller brush for the smaller components that come to the center of the delivery door. So now we're going to lubricate all the necessary components on the robot. One package of the Total Blend lubricant will lubricate all of the components on the machine that are needed. So what we're going to lubricate are the O-rings that apply to the back of the actual auger, the bushing itself for the auger, and then the O-rings that go onto the spigots. Now please note that it's best to lubricate the O-rings after they're actually installed back onto the spigots. And the last thing you're going to want to lubricate is the spline for the shaft itself. So now we're going to go ahead and install the O-rings back on the spigot, starting with the middle spigot. Take your spigot, you're going to grab your O-ring here on the left. Starting from the bottom up, go ahead and apply that O-ring to the first insert. You can then take the center O-ring, which is a much larger O-ring, simply place it into the insert here, and then grab your third and final O-ring, applying it to the bottom, and then working your way up into that designated area. Now that the O-rings have been installed, we're going to go ahead and lubricate them as mentioned in the previous step. So when lubricating the O-rings on the spigot, you don't need much in order to get it properly lubricated. Simply take a very small amount, apply it to that initial O-ring, and then you can rub it as needed, making sure that it fully covers each of those O-rings. Now we're going to go ahead and lubricate the components for the auger itself. Simply take your auger, grab the large O-ring that goes onto the back of the auger, place it down here as such. You can then take a very small portion of the Total Blend lubricant, apply it directly to that O-ring, and then you want to go ahead and rub that all around as necessary. Once that's lubricated, you can then take your seal, place it on the back of the auger. Make sure you do not lubricate any component of the seal itself. And then the last part as far as lubrication is concerned for the auger is to apply it to the spleen of the auger. Simply put a small amount on there and then rub it all the way around on that part that's hex shaped until it's completely lubricated. So prior to reassembly, you do want to make sure that you install the springs back into the auger blades. Simply grab your spring, you can then place it on the center insert here. One thing to note is as it goes inside, once it touches the back of the blade, make sure you do rotate so it in fact installs and attaches to the auger blade itself. So now we're going to go ahead and install the O-rings and the spigots for the delivery door itself. So first you want to start with that middle spigot, and you always want to make sure that you're inserting the spigots from the bottom up. You'll notice that there is a divot in this center spigot. You'll line it up with that pin on the delivery door, and that will slide in place like so until it's completely compressed. You'll repeat these same steps for those other spigots. And then once you have your spigots in place, you can then apply the orange O-rings to the back of the delivery door. So now we're going to go ahead and reassemble the auger by starting with the first two auger blades. You simply apply those blades to the back, and then you want to compress those in so that way they stay nice and tight. Once you have the blades compressed in, you can then reinsert your auger into the barrel. So now we're going to go ahead and insert the auger into the first barrel. As mentioned, make sure that those back two auger blades are compressed, because as you start to insert them into the barrel, they will help center the auger itself. You can then rotate clockwise until that next setup area for the third auger blade is facing upwards. Apply your auger blade to the auger. Continue to rotate clockwise until that next and last area for the auger blade is also upwards. Go ahead and apply that auger blade and then rotate, pushing in until that auger is completely compressed within the barrel itself. You can then go ahead and take your lubricated bushing, apply it to the inside, and then take your auger lock, making sure that when you insert the auger lock, that one of the protruding areas is at a 1 o'clock position, as this will allow for the delivery door to go on properly. After you've installed the first auger, repeat the process for the second barrel. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and reinstall the delivery door. Simply line up the 4 holes on the delivery door with the 4 screws. You can then slide that in place, making sure that the spigot harness is lined up also with the top of the spigots. You can then go ahead and compress that as necessary. Take your 4 knobs and begin reinstalling the knobs in a cross pattern to adhere the door to the machine itself. And you want to tighten it almost to the point where you cannot tighten it any further with your hand. So now we're going to go ahead and install the pins which attach the spigot to the spigot harness. Simply insert those pins into the corresponding slots, and that will lock that delivery door with that harness itself. So the next step is you're going to want to make sure that you attach your flavor burst caps along with the star caps to the spigots themselves. So simply take your flavor burst cap, attach it to the far left spigot. If you apply pressure, it'll easily snap into place. You can then take the remaining flavor burst caps, snap them as necessary, and then take your star caps and apply those also to the spigots. They will simply snap into place, and then you'll be set. So the last part in the cleaning process is to do a full sanitization of the machine now that all the components are reinstalled. So what you want to do is you want to fill your buckets with 2 gallons of water, 1 bucket for each hopper, and then add 1 packet of Sterashine to each of those buckets. Once you've added that solution to the buckets, you can then go ahead and pour them into each one of the hoppers. So now that you've gone ahead and applied the sanitizer to each one of your hoppers, you can take that existing bucket and apply it to the bottom of the delivery door here. It'll hook onto those bottom knobs for proper draining after we run a full 5-minute cleaning cycle on the machine. Once it's fully cleaned, you can then drain the necessary sanitizer in the machine, and then you've completed your full clean and sanitization of your robot. So now that we went ahead and ran the full 5-minute cleaning cycle, you're going to want to go ahead and stop the clean cycle, and then we're going to go and drain each of those spigots from your maintenance screen to fully purge the machine of all of that sanitizer. So now that you've drained all the sanitizer from your machine, feel free to move the bucket off of the delivery door. Set it to the side, and then you're going to want to go back to your maintenance screen and close all of your spigots. So that concludes the full cleaning process of your Reese & Irvy's robot. I really appreciate your time, and of course if you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to us.